Welcome to Inside the Thin Blue Line. I'm Dave Rattigan with Dale Lawrence, my usual co-host and former police officer. That's a pseudonym, by the way. All the names for the cops are pseudonyms. My name, it's a real name. But
we'll give you his address at the end. If you don't like the show, we'll give you his address, a picture of his car, picture of his daughter, whatever you want.
My email, my Facebook page, any of that
Key
stuff.
to his house if you don't like him.
And Dale's on my left and on my right. Frankie Bravo, cop at for a small urban city department in Massachusetts, and the author of The Enforcer's Notebook, which is a great blog, and hasn't written for it for a while, but maybe he'll come back to it after this, Frankie. What do you think?
It's a possibility.
All right, we'll get to that. We'll
Creative juices are flowing again.
All right, we'll talk about that in a minute, but there's a dichotomy, and we talked about it a little bit the last episode, where if you're a smaller city, if you're a small town cop, and then you have your horror stories, and then you talk to a cop at a city, he's going to have worse horror stories, and the bigger the city, the worse the horror stories, and the more frequent they are, and the grittier the crime. It's sort of you can run a stop sign in Boston, some of the time, most of the time. You're not going to get away with it in a place like Hamilton or Wenham or Essex or something like that. And the same way, I think the dichotomy, I wonder if it works in reverse, with small towns bringing more severe interactions. Is that a good term? With the entitled?
Absolutely.
When the cops are the Karen.
When the community, the people in the community make more than the cops.
Yes.
They look upon the cops as just like peasants, right? They talk down to the cops. All right. So if you live in a community where the cops making $80,000, but the income of that community is $350,000, they look at the cops in a very bad light in comparison to a really big city where the cops make some good money and the cops are they're at even keel with the majority of the community. Well, so you don't have a lot of these really. What's the word I'm looking for when someone really talks? What's a big word? Give me a big college term, Dave.
Let's say Karen.
The Karens out there. There you go. Karen's good.
But I think there's the entitled the
entitled people. Absolutely.
What I wonder about that, is it the disparity of income between the two, or is it simply that people sometimes who make more money are more difficult to deal with in general because they feel more entitled? I always feel the working class community, not that you don't have issues with people, but generally the working class people generally, if they're going to give you trouble, it's a certain type of trouble, and it's not Karen trouble. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe
I'm
right.
wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't have blue collar guys giving you a hard time over it. If they do something, they usually admit to it. You roll up to a call and there's a fight or something going on, they'll just usually turn around and put their hands behind their back and say, "You got me, take me out of here. I just slapped my punky little 15-year-old kid in the head. Get me out of here." That's true. That has happened. They'll walk out and they'll just put their hands and they'll get arrested and they won't argue with you. Absolutely.
That's true?
I've actually seen that.
You've seen that?
I've seen that. Absolutely.
They just turn around and they put their hands behind their back?
Oh, yeah.
They know the game.
Oh. They know the game.
Absolutely.
They know the game.
Well, and it's funny. I was talking to Dale on the way up here, and I was talking to Dale about my ride up here, and I'm going through the more urban communities, and all footloose and fancy free. And the closer I got up here, the more, the more the community becomes a little bit more affluent and stuff like that. Felt myself grabbing for my registration and putting it on the seat, my license.
Yeah, you can't run stop signs.
Well, let me put it. If I was a cop, working today, and I saw Frankie come to my community, call for backup. I call for backup.
Yeah,
I'd get right behind him.
He's a big dude,
and I'd probably just pull him over and say, "What are you doing, brother?
Yeah,
what are you coming to our town for?"
Why are you coming to our town? Why don't you have plates on the car? Anyway, so the Karen, the person who, and again, poor Karen. Anybody named Karen has got that nickname on them forever, which is basically the suburban, the white the white suburban, sometimes urban,
entitled housewife who's doesn't work. Her kids go to private school. Her husband's, I don't know, the CEO of Burger King. I don't know what he does, but he's a big wig somewhere in his own mind. And
Jill, tell us how you feel about women.
Oh, I love women. Just
don't beat around the bush.
Just not Karens.
If only we had some kind of audio proof that this existed, then it'd be great. If only we had some sort of proof.
Well, Dave, I went into the evidence files. All right, I went into the evidence files and I came up with 3 that we're going to discuss.
All right. Did you actually pull this off the web, or where'd you get it from? Can you say?
Files. These are pending cases. No, I just pulled them off the web. There's so much off the web.
I think the evidence files actually sounded so much better, but I wasn't sure if you were telling me the truth or if you were.
I was about ready to call for my PBA.
What's a PBA?
My union rep.
Oh, yeah, PBA union lawyer. Okay.
Police Benevolent Association. Even I know that one. Yeah. You want to call for your union rep, and you get that much in your town?
What's that?
People who you pull over, and how dare you pull me over?
Less than probably Dale.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And again, because of the town you're in.
Right. Correct.
He tries to pull them over. They just take off and they keep running.
Exactly.
They run to the border. Once they're over the border or whatever border's up there.
Right. They go to their
Hampshire, Maine, Rhode Island, Vermont, wherever they're going.
All right. What do we got? We got a couple of.
First one, we're gonna call her the Matchbook Lawyer.
What crime have I been suspected of committing?
What's that?
What crime have I been suspected of committing?
You have no brake lights.
Is that a crime, officer?
It is. Give me your license.
According to People versus Battle, traffic infractions are not crimes.
Give me your license.
Unless there's been a crime committed, officer, I'm not showing my ID.
Committed, and I need to see your driver's.
Where's the corpus delicti?
I need to see your driver's license.
Is there an injured party, sir?
I'm not asking you.
Is there an injured party?
I'm not asking you.
Is there an injured party, officer? According to Black's Law Dictionary, a crime is defined as there being an injured party.
Beautiful. Corpus delicti. I was at a restaurant the other day and I ordered that.
When she said that, I kind of got a little bit hungry.
What's that? It's a dead body, right?
What is a corpus delicti?
I think it's a dead body, isn't it? Yeah.
Were any of those terms or any of those laws she cited accurate?
What they usually do is they'll pick out a few federal cases on motor vehicle stops or probable cause for a motor vehicle stop. You can go out on the web and that'll be some Matchbook Lawyer. If you ever get pulled over by the cops, I want you to quote this case and that case, just general cases which have some bearing on what she said, but completely irrelevant to what he's talking to her about. Yeah, so you can usually tell right away that she got that off the web, but she read it somewhere and she's just spitting it out kind of verbatim. But only thing she said that was correct there.
Yeah.
I mean, different parts of the country might be a little different, but a brake light out, lights that don't work, that's not criminal. It's not arrestable. So what she said there was 50% right. Then she went into corpus delicti and is there an injured party? She doesn't even know what she's saying.
Verbal pablum.
What's that?
Verbal pablum.
Yeah. It's just now I've seen a couple different versions of this as well. Where videos, one involved a guy and saying, "I don't have to roll down my window for you," to the cop. Why? I mean, how do people come up with this information? I mean, are they learning about the law so they can use this at a traffic stop sometime when they're speeding because they speed that often? Or are they law students? Or are they lawyers?
You don't even have to be a law student. Everything is on the web. What are those books that they sell? The Complete Idiot's Guide to Anything?
Yeah, but who learns these laws to throw out at these purposes?
And you can go out and do the Mass General Laws on any website, Mass.gov, and you can get a link to Mass General Laws.
But you've got to have an interest enough to go get this stuff so that you can use it in an argument.
If you're a radical, if you've been pulled over a couple of times and you just want to, a lot of people just like to screw with the cops, see if they can get a rise out of a cop.
Okay.
Right. I mean, and there actually is a group out there, a couple of groups out there that are First Amendment auditors, they call them.
Okay.
Oh, you know something? I was thinking of that. We got a great kid we can bring on this show. He's a First Amendment auditor. He would be awesome.
All right, we'll get him. We'll get him down the road.
Absolutely.
A First Amendment, and that's a First Amendment auditor is what? Is there to keep everybody in line?
He tries to keep the cops in line, meaning a cop will pull up to a call, he'll keep his car running. And the First Amendment auditor will jump out of the bushes and say, hey, according to Mass General Law 68-2, Chapter 3, you can't keep your car running on a public road for more than 4 minutes. And then he'll just harass the cop on that premise alone.
Really? And he hides in the bushes to do this?
There's all different ones. I mean, there's ones that'll come right up to the, the front desk of the station and ask for something that's almost impossible to give them, and then they will demand to see your official, et cetera, and they're just trying to get some sort of a reaction so that they can throw on their website, because there's plenty of websites with them on there. If you Google First Amendment auditors,
they're very funny to watch because cops should know better, right? Because all they're looking for is to get a rise from a cop. So regardless of what they say to you, they're just trying to get you pissed off, and then cops fall into it all the time. All you're going to do is just reverse it on them and just come at them with humor or be playful with them or agree with them, whether you agree or not. And if there's no argument, if there's no drama on that, then people aren't going to watch it. He's not going to get upset. All right?
He's not going to make money off of his blog.
Right. Off his YouTube.
Right.
Yeah,
so YouTube account.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're pretty radical. Yeah. They're fun to watch.
Yeah. I would, and of course, when a cop pulls you over, if it's a plate light out, or sometimes it's for your own good. You're letting people know, hey, you've got a light out or something like that, and sometimes it's both for your own good and because they want to.
They got a quota.
Smell your car. They've got a quota. They've got a quota.
We talked about that a few weeks ago. Yeah.
How often do cops pull you over with the intention of checking to see if you've been drinking? Like there's something fairly small, but you pull somebody over because you think there might be something else going on.
Go ahead, Frankie. You live in a much bigger town than me.
It all comes down to probable cause. If you see a car weaving over the line, back and forth, those are all visual cues that the person may be drinking, and then you see them go to make a left-hand turn and there's no blinker. You're going to cite that as one of the reasons why you pulled them over.
Okay, so that's the reason you pull them over, and because there might be something else.
I'll give it from a different perspective.
Okay.
A older cop when I was young, he said to me, "Listen to me. A lot of stuff that goes on out there, motor vehicle infractions. There's a lot of just stuff that happens in front of you that's it's really not worth it." Yeah. He goes, "Remember this: as long as you're alive, as long as you're a cop, curiosity killed the cat."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you are that cop who thinks that everyone's drunk, and then you use the premise of, their taillight is out or they didn't put a blinker on as your reason to pull them over, and they haven't shown you anything other than that. Yeah. Then you're gonna get a reputation for yourself, not only on the streets, but in the courts. The courts are gonna know that you're someone who has had no probable cause to pull them over other than tail light or a headlight or something like that, some sort of a motor vehicle issue. And then from there, you just solve the biggest drug bust in the history of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very intelligent district attorneys and lawyers and even seasoned cops can see through that.
Right.
So it's a lot better just to try to, whatever's presented to you, take it at face value, deal with that issue. And if something pops up on its own, then you deal with that.
Basically, use common sense.
Yeah, that's
what it comes down to.
So as a citizen, I know that if I'm speeding a little bit or if I've got a taillight out, generally the cop pulling me over is not going to ask me to pop the trunk to take a look to see if there's a body there.
Other than just what you said alone in the state of Massachusetts?
Yep.
Absolutely not.
Right.
All right. So they're good.
Now, if they ask you and you say yes, and there is a body in your trunk and you walk over and open it up, that's going to be an issue for you.
Or if I walk up to the car and the first words out of your mouth are, "There's no body in my trunk."
Well, I've just told you there isn't a body in my trunk. So
I don't
how
get
is
that
that
15-year-old boy
probable
missing
cause?
from bar? He's not in my car.
Do you have you got another one?
Yeah, we got a couple more, and this one is this one speaks for itself.
I am Paul Sheldon's #1 fan. His #1 fan. And you can't be telling me that you don't have Paul Sheldon's books here. Isn't there anybody here who knows about Paul Sheldon? Isn't anybody familiar with the Misery books? I'm telling you, how could any of you be in a bookstore when you don't know Paul Sheldon? When you've never read Misery? What is wrong with you all? I don't understand what is happening.
No worries, man. No worries.
Looking for a cock-a-doodle
Well, now that one makes a lot of sense because I think of the great authors and I think Poe, Conan Doyle, Shakespeare, and Paul Sheldon.
Never heard of him.
Anybody. Well, clearly you're not a reader.
Probably not.
I actually meant to look it up because I'm like, oh, he wrote Misery. And then I was just thinking as we went to as we started to put this together, I started to think, wait a minute, Misery was written by Stephen King, but maybe there's a different series. So
yeah, she would know. She sounds pretty intellectually astute.
Yeah, well, she certainly knows Paul Sheldon.
Paul Sheldon was a writer in Misery. He was a writer.
Oh. Do you really?
He was a writer. He was trying to finish his book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's when he drove off the road.
Wouldn't it be funny if this clip turned out to be from the movie Misery?
No, I actually saw her. She was a real life lady in Barnes and Noble bookstore somewhere. I believe it was in like the New York area.
But yeah, Paul Sheldon was who's the
James Caan.
That was James Caan's character.
Oh, that was his character.
Wow.
That's hysterical.
Oh, hey, wait, Dave. Whoa. Next time you get guests in here, make sure they're not smarter than both of us together.
Listen, that's hard. It's very hard to find guests that aren't smarter than the two of us. That's hysterical. And that would be a what EDP?
Yeah, that's borderline EDP.
Yeah. She was very manic. If you listen to the tape, you really don't even hear the cop. You don't hear the cop until the very end because
you let them play out.
And just to say, we use the term last episode. EDP is emotionally disturbed person.
Yes,
absolutely.
Okay. And you let it play out. And explain, please.
Yeah, I mean, as long as she doesn't have a weapon. She's not violent toward other people, like aggressively going at someone. If people like that, they need to vent because they're manic. They're very wired and they're confused because she says near the end, I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. So she's telling you what's going on. So you let them vent. And once they're done venting, you try to move them from the area because now they're probably a little paranoid. What is everyone looking at now? Because now they might be back to reality.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are times where as a cop, you let somebody vent like that. You go into the call and the call is like, you get the call from dispatch and it's something major. You get there, you let the person vent like that. And at the end, you ask them, what they would like done. They're like, I just wanted to tell somebody. I just wanted to get my side of the story out.
And this is a little bit of a psych call because obviously if she was talking about a fictitious author, so there's a psychological issue plus an emotional issue. Is that?
Yeah, you have to try to make a determination by either just your experience or asking her, what's your name? Do you know where you are? What day is it? Who's the president? Are you going to harm yourself?
Either that or call you the local social worker.
Oh, yeah, the social workers are right on your hip, baby. Just call
I'm not going to talk to you guys about social workers. I know where the conversation goes.
That might not be a bad. That's probably not a bad call.
That's one of the calls that you would.
As long as she's not violent or has a weapon, then yeah, a social worker might. She might. Something. If she's a social worker from the area, which they work in the area with whatever police department, and this lady's from the area. There might be a relationship there, and it might work out better than a cop dealing with it.
So when you call it an EDP, you're basically you don't know if if the person's got mental health issues beyond the fact that they've lost it.
No, because they could be just emotionally disturbed for that moment in time.
I have a story that I read in your blog that we could talk about, but I know you've got the other story you've got about the dance.
Yes, a while back. This was a while back when I still had my dance moves. Actually, I got a call to assist the ambulance, and we get to it was a boarding house, and the woman that lived there was an older woman. She was an EDP, and she didn't like females. And the ambulance crew that they sent to the call was 2 female emergency medical technicians. So I got there to assist them, and as I'm there, she's yelling at him. She's throwing 4-letter words at him, telling him there's no way that she's going with them. Well, she's got a little, like an old-fashioned transistor radio, and she's listening to oldies music. And I have an eclectic music taste.
A big word.
Yeah, yeah. Eclectic, it means something invented by Alexander Graham Bell.
Very good.
So I like a little bit of all kinds of music. So she has the oldies, playing Frank Sinatra music. So I walk up to her, my nice, visually and my nice soothing tone.
He's very non-threatening looking.
Yeah,
just hide the tattoos and be all set.
Yeah, it's a good point. Are you a non-threatening cop or are you a threatening?
I'm a very non-threatening cop.
You can tell by the tone of his voice that he is.
Well, his voice is...
Being a lawyer is tough. Running a law firm, even tougher. It's time to simplify your work by automating case management, client intake, and billing with Clio, the most trusted law firm software. Learn more at Clio.com.
His voice and his mannerisms.
Very calming.
He's very calming. You could tell that he's a big.
I bet you he's on their hostage negotiation team.
Are you on the hostage negotiation team?
Go ahead and shoot him.
Do you wear short sleeves or do you wear long sleeves?
I wear both.
Okay.
Well, at 100 degrees, Dave, what do you wear?
Huh?
And 100 degrees out in the summer, what do you wear?
If I had the tattoos that he's got, I would probably decide, do I want to be in polite society or do I want to be hanging around with, what are those a picture? There's a map of Nevada. Wow, he's got a lot of stuff.
I've got roses, I've got bagpipe players.
There you go.
A yin and a yang.
Every once in a while, Dave goes off track here. I saw he took some pill over that. I don't know what it is.
It's amoxicillin.
Amoxicillin. Another one of those nice girls you met after a comedy show, huh?
Yeah.
Sure.
Quote unquote. I'm taking my amoxicillin now.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't want to be an EDP later on. So you were talking to this woman. You've got eclectic musical taste. She's an ED. She's all wound up.
So I basically asked her. I'm like, listen, ma'am. I think you're pretty cool. And what would it take to get you to go to the hospital with these fine young ladies? She looks at me. She goes, dance with me. I'm like, they got Frank Sinatra on there. She's like, you don't know Frank Sinatra. What's your favorite Frank Sinatra song? Told her Summer Wind, which is my absolute favorite Frank Sinatra song.
Okay.
So
now we know you're a wimp.
Absolutely. So she puts her hand out, tango out to the thing. I look back and my backup is trying desperately to get his cell phone out to try and get a video of it. So, yeah. But that's how we got her to go to the hospital. And that's the thing is that, if that's what it takes to let somebody get their steam out, that's what you do.
I can beat that story.
You could beat that story? Oh?
We got a call for a loud party. We went in there. There was 3 or 4 strippers in there, young girls naked, stripping. They wouldn't leave the party. They were causing a disturbance. And I said to them, what would it take to get you 4 to leave this city? Because we don't approve of that behavior.
$500.
And she says, will you dance with me? So I started dancing with her. What's nothing wrong with that? She put her clothes on after that. They left.
Honest chief. That's the way it went down.
That's the way it went down.
That's the way it went down. So they did the dance with you. You did the dance. They took their clothes and they put them on and they left.
They left. They went back to whatever town they were from.
All right. And then at what point did you put your clothes down?
I forgot to mention that.
They went back to the small urban town.
I got to say, when you said you could beat the Sinatra story, I didn't think that was possible. But
Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty close.
Chicken dinner.
It's pretty close. Let's. We got one more. Let's do the. Okay. Why don't we do the mayor and then we get the person who's trying to insult, get the cop to lose his temper.
I'll lose his temper.
Yeah, but why don't we do the mayor?
Yeah,
I love the mayor.
This is the one where you always run into someone that knows everybody, and they throw names around just to keep you off guard.
By the way, I don't know if we talked about this last week. Same thing with reporters. Everybody knows your editor. Everybody knows your publisher. Everybody knows this person and that person. And if you don't write something nice about them, or if you write the truth about them, you were going to pay. It's the same thing, just the threats. Go over your head.
Did you drive here or did someone drive here?
Do what?
Did you drive here?
I drove here.
How much have you had to drinks tonight?
Not much.
Okay.
I was at home and then my son called me, so. Dude, take me home.
I'm not being
Let them take me home.
I'm not being a jerk.
Let them take me home. I am a justice of the peace from Washington County Quorum Court. And I know Sheriff Helder. He is a friend of mine.
I know him too.
Sheriff Helder is a friend.
We would get that every once in a while, and it wasn't so much sheriffs or anything like that. It was, I know Officer so and so, and usually it was be a guy on a day shift. So I would say, "Oh, you know, so and so." I hate that son of a bitch.
Everyone hates him in the department.
He told on me 5 years ago, and he's the reason I'm still on midnights now. Usually they shut up after that.
I like that one. And I know you've got one.
What do I got?
You've got a story like that.
I know someone?
No. Oh, don't you? A booking story? Are we going to hold that for later on?
Well, it's really not necessarily relatable to this, but it's very common.
All right.
That people, and you know something? It's just me talking. I'm not speaking for Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, sometimes when people throw names around, and if it's not a big thing, and this lady was hammered, I believe. She was like hammered.
Yeah.
So you're not going to let her drive home drunk. You're not going to let that happen. Now, are you going to put her in the back of a car and have someone take her home? Police discretion. You can do that. You can do that. That's an option. Yeah, I mean, if people say, hey, I'm friends with this person, or I went to school with your wife, or some guy says, hey, I was just dating your wife last week. I'm like, oh, the other one dating my wife on Facebook. I was wondering who that was. Just shit like that. I always had a soft spot for that. And if the person wasn't belligerent, if it wasn't like if it was something minor.
All right.
Yeah, you can, you know, what's that phrase? One hand washes the other, Dave.
Is that one hand washes the other? Is that the thing?
Is that what it is?
That makes sense.
It is for this show.
Yeah. All right. Fine.
Fine. And with COVID, we all should wash our hands.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. Well, this is the other thing about cops and police departments is frequently people who grow up in a community wind up as police, wind up as a cop, and they know everyone. And there must be a good and a bad side to that, because I mean, from the one. Let's put it this way: if I'm in a town and I knew Dale Lawrence and I get pulled over by a policeman and I've got, you know, he comes up to me, he says, "Hey, listen, there's blood dripping out of your trunk. What's going on?" And I would say, "Oh, I know Dale Lawrence."
And then the cop would say, "Yeah, why don't you go dump that body in another city and we'll go from there."
And it's no problem. But you run into the same thing in your town?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you from your town?
I was born and raised in the town that I work in, and I had moved out a couple of years back.
Okay. All right.
If you knew where he worked, you know why he wouldn't live there.
Right. Well, that's the other thing. Well, here's the other thing about being a cop in your hometown. And some cops will stay in the town. They'll be a resident in the town. I know there are some people who favor cops living in the town, and others would just as soon not live in the town. I know there are some cities that have tried to make it a requirement.
There's a lot of towns you have to be within 5 to 10 miles of where you work.
Right. I could see the idea of like being in let's put it this way. There's got to be negative things. I knew people who, I knew a personal trainer, and he never worked out at the club that he worked in because he said he couldn't get any work done. And I got to assume with cops, it's a double-edged sword. I mean, it's, when you pull over some nitwit if you pull over some nitwit and you went to elementary school with them, there's a potential for issues that you don't have if you just pulled over anybody.
Right. Well, when I still lived in town, it was one Halloween where I was giving out candy, and a group of kids comes up, and they're all dressed in really cool, outfits and costumes and stuff like that. And I look and I hear one of them go, "Hey, that's the guy that arrested Uncle Pete."
Oh, great!
Yeah,
great. That's and you see him right there at your house where they know your address. The issue of, again, people who you stop who just want to name the people that they know. This woman who may have been intoxicated. Who knows? Maybe she was just. Maybe there was something else. It is a common thing. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it works, but
it can work in your favor. If it's no cop is going to put their neck out for something that's completely some sort of a crazy ass crime, regardless of who you know. So I know someone can work with minor things. Okay, major things, domestic situations, not going to help you.
Okay,
I don't care who you know in a domestic. You're probably going to get arrested in a domestic. Some sort of a weapons situation. You're drunk and you're in a car accident. It doesn't matter who you know.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Yep.
The cops are going to have to do what they have to do to protect their own ass.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk yourself into a worse? If I say this, I get pulled over. I know the mayor. Blah 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 blah.
If people hate the mayor, absolutely. just by you saying you know the mayor,
right?
Yeah, that could whatever break you might have got. You might have just turned the table on that one.
What about just the belligerence of trying to weasel out of that? Does that ever work against somebody where they say, yeah, I know people in high up, I can take your badge, I'll make life miserable for you.
Those are the towns in which the cops are hired by selectmen and they're not civil service.
Yeah.
So the town fathers will hire the police. So you pull over a selectman in a small community that's not civil service, and you pull that person over, or someone who throws that name around, that really could go against you. They might not hire you next year. That is absolutely something that happens.
That's somebody who's really connected.
Yeah, that could happen.
Huh.
That could happen.
That's
it's unfortunate, but it could happen.
Yeah.
It's
your
town's at civil service, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no money in your town. Ain't no one connected. Maybe to the mafia or something like that, but not politically.
So, what do you want to? You want to go to the next tape, or you want to talk about real quickly about the Enforcer's Notebook, or what do you want to do?
Whatever you got.
Let's play the next one. Let's play the next one.
We'll play one more here.
Yeah, the person who's trying to antagonize. Nothing I like more when other people are trying to antagonize police. Not me, but other people.
First Amendment auditor.
This is Portland PD. What a shithole that part of the country is right now.
Which Portland? Do you know there are like
it's not Portland, Maine. It's Portland, Oregon.
It's not the good Portland. It's the bad Portland. Actually, Portland, Oregon's a pretty nice place.
Your behavior is very erratic.
Oh, is it?
And Jamie, every time we just try to have a normal conversation with you, it just goes right to insults.
Is that against the law? Is it against the law to insult a man in blue?
Do you understand how it's not a normal conversation? Jamie, we're leaving. Have a good day, Jamie. We're leaving.
I want him arrested. Fuckface.
We're not taking a report from you, Jamie. Especially when you're going to scream like that. Have a good day. You go back over here. If you're going to block his way or grab onto his car, you've got one or two things. You go to jail for disorderly conduct, or you can go to the mental hospital. Which one would you like? Because those are your only two options.
Fuck you, Hastings. You're going down
douchebag. You're going viral, fuckface. I'm a big fucking man, and I'm gonna pull out my dick and see how big it is, and I've got the biggest dick of them all.
That's not and one of your exes, is it, Dave?
I was going to say it sounded like Frankie's wife talking to him. That's horrible. But I know she's going to listen to this, so then I'll see her and she'll say, "How did you know that I call him a fuckface?"
There you go.
Does
that's her affectionate term for me.
I think she's known to the police. She knew the cop by name, and they knew her. I forget what name they said, but they knew her.
Yep.
So, there are people
they were expecting that.
Yeah, they kind of knew her. They dealt with her before. You have people in your community that have mental health issues, and sometimes they just, whether their meds need a little tweaking, they just go off the rails. They're having a bad day. They're usually manageable. They just antagonize it, and those cops seem pretty professional, and they didn't get sucked into it, because very easily they could have gone hands on with her, and it wouldn't have looked good for them. All right, and it wouldn't have worked out well. So I think they handled it relatively well. It sounded pretty good. I think the only thing I wouldn't have probably said, we're going to send you to a mental hospital.
Right.
Yeah, people who are having those type of issues, they're very, very hypersensitive to words and how words are put into context. And they will pick out phrases that you say to them.
Yep.
And they will just go
on
off.
them.
Yeah, they'll go off on that phrase. I'm surprised she didn't go off on that on that phrase right there.
So what other? You didn't think she went off of that phrase? Oh, she just was going off in general.
Yeah, she was another one venting, and they kind of left the area. So it kind of tells me that they're kind of used to her and her antics. And she was probably on like her front porch of her house, and she probably lives with her mother or something like that. And she, like I said, she probably didn't take her meds for the last week. She probably needs to go to the hospital because she seemed to be like, spiraling out of control a little bit.
Yeah, you think so?
That's kind of a risk that cops take. You kind of roll the dice sometimes.
I was going to say that's an interesting call, because if you truly thought she was that off the rails,
yeah, that must be her baseline. Some people have a baseline.
I was going to say there's off the rails, and then there's dangerous.
Yeah,
you know?
Do you run into anybody like that you pull over on a fairly regular basis that knows? I mean, because she knew him, he knew her, she knew him.
I think a lot of them don't even have driver's licenses, which is a good thing. at least in my community, they don't. They just walk or ride a bike.
I want to get to the booking story. Was this officer in the booking room who had the fight with his wife, the argument with his wife? Was this you?
No.
Okay,
No, this
it's too bad.
Not me.
I know his wife, and I've been envisioning her being the person who did it. But this is a great. And whenever I tell this to anybody else, I say this guy had a fight with his wife, or had an argument with his wife, and I think they all expect it's going to turn awful. Anyway, could you tell that story?
We had a motorcycle bar in town, and
former club. Go ahead.
Yeah, club. And we ended up. They had a brawl at the motorcycle club, so we got sent en masse, and we arrested just about everybody in the parking lot. So the scene is the booking room. You got about 5 or 6 very large bikers, 5 or 6 very large cops. We're all kind of tending to our bumps and bruises and scratches because we've all just kind of gone at it, and we're all type A personalities.
There you go. You hate to lose, man. Hate to lose. We're in charge, brother.
So it ends up this one cop had gotten into an argument prior to the shift, and his wife got a hold of his phone prior to the shift and changed his ringtone. So
I thought you were going to say he found his girlfriend's phone number.
So there's 10 type A big burly personalities in the booking room. All of a sudden, the phone rings for this guy, and it's wham. careless whisper.
George Michael, I love him.
I'm fingerprinting one guy, and we just look at each other, and you got biker and cop, and we just looked at each other, and we both bursted out laughing at the same time. It basically broke the ice, and from that point on, it really wasn't.
Yeah,
that
that's right. Sometimes in law enforcement, things pop up, and it breaks the ice. You have people who just were hating each other on the street, and fuck the cops and fuck the bikers, and then something happens, and they're like, "Oh, this was real stupid," and they kind of bond, and everyone just lightens up, and the situation diffuses itself, and there you go.
Beautiful. You want to wrap on your booking story?
On my booking story,
Yeah.
I think maybe we'll save my booking story for
so time conscious. Time conscious.
What, you want my booking story?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
I do.
Oh, Frankie does. All right. So this was I thought this was nowadays everyone would be arrested, but anyway. So we had a young lady, 18-year-old. Let me set the tone. 18-year-old. Drunk, intoxicated cheerleader wearing tight jeans and a tank top, and she had daddy issues, if you get my drift. All right, Dave? So she was in protective custody because her parents called and they wanted her out of the house. So we went and picked her up, brought her to the station. She was just belligerent, and she had a piece of paper in her pocket, and there was a phone number, and she says, if I call this person and they're willing to pick me up, will you release me to him? We're like, well, who is it? She goes, it's just a guy I know. And so she's 19 years old. We're like, well, yeah, you can call him and see what's going on, but yeah, he's probably not going to be able to get you for a few hours because he's still a little drunk. So she's talking to him, and cops can tell when people are talking in code over the phone, meaning she doesn't want us to know that she's talking to some older guy who she may or may not have had some sort of sexual relations with, just based on her conversation, how she was talking to him. Well, as the conversation went, his name slipped out, and he just so happened to be, this was probably 30 years ago, he just so happened to be a very high school administrator in the city that I work. Oh. Now, oops. Uh-oh. Back then, nowadays, that's a crime. Nowadays, if you're a teacher, 22-year-old teacher, and there's an 18-year-old kid and you're dating him, that's pretty much, that's a sexual crime, because teachers nowadays are in this little category that they can't have any relations with their students. Back then, it wasn't necessarily a crime. That teacher would have been fired, okay,
yeah,
if it came about, but he wouldn't have been arrested. Now people, they get arrested for that. If you just go into Barstool Sports and you scroll down about the 50th story, they love throwing the middle school teacher having sex with the 15-year-old kid. So that's what this was. This was a administrator in his 40s, girl of legal age, 18 years old. Yep. However, it was that teacher, administrator, cheerleader type relationship that was bad. So we just left it at that. And we left it at that, and nothing was ever said about it. Why, would you like me to release his name?
No. I'm just thinking what do you
think, Frankie? That was 30 years ago. Yeah, he gets a pass, right? Nowadays, he probably gets arrested.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
So he would have been, because all right.
The laws have changed, or at least in Massachusetts.
Right.
I can't tell you what's going on in Florida or Tennessee or Texas.
I think in Florida it's encouraged.
In California it's encouraged. In Tennessee it's definitely encouraged.
Georgia, it's a rite of passage.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks, Frankie, for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
That was Frankie Bravo, Dale Lawrence, Dave Rattigan. This has been Inside the Thin Blue Line. Join us next week, and we're going to talk a little bit about scams.